Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone is well. Thank you for bearing with me with a slightly later start time than usual, but family life, etc., just got in the way ever so slightly. But we are here, um, and we are raring to go with just kind of a standard um, call tonight, I suppose. We'll have a look at all of the usual Bitcoin prices. Tau, long term, short term, etc. But I also want to kind of, I mean, maybe it was a little bit of a clickbait title, but do want to have a discussion on whether or not not that Bitcoin's fighting for its life. I mean, this is not another obituary where Bitcoin is dead or anything like that, but maybe just fighting for relevancy at this particular moment in time. And given how fickle investors can be, is that a short term issue, not just for Bitcoin, but also for the cryptocurrency sector in general. So we'll have a little bit of a look at that. I have had a few questions around privacy tokens and a few other things which we'll go through. And then, as I say, we'll dive into the chart. So without any further ado, let's just jump in. As always, any questions you got, feel free to shove them into the chat box. Okay, I always do this. My camera never seems to load, and I can never get it. I never remember what the right key is. There it is to get it back in. Okay, 3-day time frame, and we can actually see that Bitcoin's making a very nice move as of today. Currently up $3,000, just over 3%, sitting in and around 94,000, coming up to a pretty important line of resistance that we've kind of been battling with since that November drop. Matter of fact, I'll blow this up onto the bigger section there, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. But a nice strong move, and sort of as we were last week, we'd had that rejection from there, and I did say my thought was that one would see 89,000, which we did do, but I thought actually we might actually see the lower side of that sector. That actually hasn't happened. Some fairly decent news coming out from CPI data that was released today, I suppose. We are seeing a positive reaction to that, but just bear in mind that actually we are running into a level that we have struggled with in the past. So whilst it's nice to see that move, what we're looking for is a breakthrough that with strength, consolidating above it, and then we can start talking about some of these other major levels of resistance, I suppose they are now, in our way to reclaiming ourselves back into some sort of actual genuine bull territory. But we can't be too sad with what we are seeing, certainly today. I mean, to be fair, even actually from just the start of this year, we were down at 87,000. So, decent 7,000 sort of. I know it's about 8.5% increase on the year already, which we'll take given we're only 13 days in. The impact that that's had across the markets, Bitcoin's actually kind of leading the way over the last sort of week and a half, and we can see that reflected again in the Bitcoin dominance up over the last 6 or 7 days, but still sitting in that kind of threshold, which I've talked about before. Unless I'll draw the lines on it because I don't know why I never keep them. Unless we really get past the 60 and we start to sort of break north of here, and we can really think that Bitcoin is dominating again, or we drop below and it is kind of about 57, and we can really say, once Bitcoin dominance falls down here, we've got a genuine alt season on the cards. Until then, we're kind of just status quo. Some days Bitcoin will do well, some days altcoins will do well, but as long as the actual dollar value is going up, then we'll take it for now. Given majority of my portfolio is Bitcoin, obviously I want Bitcoin dominance to continue, but I do need to see that flip at some stage so that we can kind of benefit from where we are with altcoin allocation. Total 2 has just been a bit of a total MF. Work it out. In terms of this battle in and around that 1.25 trillion level, it feels like it has gone on forever, and that's because we have been having that battle effectively for the last 2.5 months now, starting with the drop down in November to this line, and then yes, we've been below it, we've been above it, and certainly over the last 2 weeks we are just hokey pokeying in and around it. Though today again we have managed to climb back through that 1.25 level, actually making some fairly decent support over the last 2 weeks off that level, building towards it. But I cannot get excited. As nice as that is to look at, let's be realistic. We've seen it before in the last 2 weeks, up to 1.3, 1.32, and then losing it there. So we've got to be seeing those movements. We've got to be starting to make this transition from lower lows and lower highs to higher lows and higher highs. And then we can start talking about a trend reversal. And then when we get into BitTensor, I, I always sort of play BitTensor down a little bit in terms of, still struggling below this level. But we had that V-shaped reversal, certainly on the 3-day time frame, 3-day reversal, coming up to this yellow line, which has been a 12-month at least level of support resistance. We have been rejected from that, but we've stuck around. Okay, we've actually managed to sort of consolidate around that 275, 280 level for the last 2 weeks, but we need that push through, and it's tantalizingly close. We keep on getting to that yellow line. We can just never hold above it. But until we do, I'm just saying, well, the trend is still continuing, lower lows, lower highs, etc. Now, I will go into it a little bit later on. I saw the post people put on a Discord from Raoul Powell talking about BitTensor. I don't know when it was, maybe a couple of days ago. And he was looking at it from the weekly time frame. And to be fair, I think I sometimes look so far into the lower time frames, it's hard to zoom out. So when we get onto BitTensor, we'll start with the weekly time frame. I think there is potential, some positivity there, but a lot of it is going to circle back to what we're about to discuss in a moment about sort of just crypto apathy, I suppose, or certainly fatigue that we may be experiencing right now, and what that knock-on effect can be. But that's currently where we find ourselves. Hey, everybody in the chat there. Good to see you all. See you typing all, should I say. Okay, right. Let's just clear up my screen so actually you can see what people are putting. There we go. And let's go into this. So I did drop this in Discord not so long ago, and it was effectively a tweet which summarized this article from Cointelegraph, sort of just suggesting that not just crypto X or Twitter, crypto Twitter, doesn't sound like crypto X, but crypto YouTube have sunk to effectively the lowest levels we've seen since effectively, actually, it's 2020, early 2021, when Bitcoin rallied up to that 64,000. And the point it was effectively trying to make is that, YouTube, X, social media in general has been a very good barometer for the health of cryptocurrency and where you find yourselves within certain cycles over the history to date. So obviously, when Bitcoin is doing very well, when altcoins are flying, interest is incredibly high. The views that you get on YouTube, the engagement you get on Twitter, the Google search trends, etc., are all, I'm not going to say record high, but they are significantly higher than you expect. And then, contrary to that, when we are, Bitcoin's price is struggling and we're down in the depths of a bear market, as you'd imagine, retail effectively falls away. There's a significant lack of interest because retail are dumb. They're not interested when the prices are low. They're only interested when it's super high, etc., etc. Well, the point that was coming out, and again, trying to just understand and using all of the different kind of metrics or just, I don't know, TA and FA out there, trying to understand where actually are we on the cycle. Is it a 4-year cycle and we're the wrong side of it and we're heading down? Is it a new 5-year cycle? Is it just totally different? So because price action isn't really, well, it's not giving people who want to believe it's a bull market the answer they want to see. Those that think we're moving into a bear market, they believe they've got their answer. But we can certainly have a look at how engagement is doing. And the article goes on to effectively say that engagement is incredibly low. It is lower than the depths that we saw in November of 2022. That is the depths of the bear market. Bitcoin price down at sort of $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. And I would argue that actually there was slight increase of YouTube interest at that time because FTX just imploded and a lot of people wanted to understand what was going on. And so they were flooding to the likes of Twitter and YouTube to try and understand what that was. But even still, with Bitcoin sitting at $94,000, social media engagement, retail engagement in Bitcoin and in cryptocurrency is at the lows not seen and since 2020 and lower than where we were in a bear market. If that's not a sign of just general fatigue and just worn outness, if that's a term, then I don't know what is. And the reason that I sort of talk about is Bitcoin fighting for its life, I probably should have actually titled it is cryptocurrency, and in particular our altcoins fighting for their life. Because whilst Bitcoin has been institutionally recognized, it has been institutionally bought up, it's fast, well, it's not fast tracked, but it's on the tracks now to just general adoption as an asset class. There are articles out there about the volatility still scaring people off, etc., but we're getting there. Altcoins on the other side, not quite the same. There was a little bit of interest in Ethereum, next to no interest in a Solana ETF. And generally, we can all agree, whether or not we want to, alt season just hasn't really felt like it's been a thing. And that's because alt season relies on one thing more than anything else, and that's retail. Altcoins rely more, in my opinion, on retail hype, the greater fool mentality of retail rushing in, buying up this asset, trying to ride that price up, hoping that some other fool is going to buy them off it at a later date. And if retail aren't there to buy it in the first place, there's certainly going to be no one else that's willing to buy it at an extortionately higher price later on, when your hairdresser tells you about some coin you've never heard of, or about the fact that they turned $1,000 into $20,000 over the space of a weekend. We just don't really get those stories right now. And I'll show you this. This is actually from Ben Cohen, and most of you probably know him. He's into the cryptoverse. This is taken from his Twitter. He must have posted it or something like this. And this kind of just shows you, I don't know how many there are here, but let's say there's 25, 30 channels there. Some of you may have not have heard of some of these YouTube channels. Some of you may hate some of those ones. Doesn't really matter. The point is that what it does is it's counting all of the views, combining all of those to give you total views in some of the biggest crypto YouTubers out there over a given period. And just by looking at it, you can kind of see 2019, not many of these people had actually started channels, and so engagement was relatively low. And for those of you that were in the sector at the time, it was difficult to find information on cryptocurrency back then, because there just weren't many people that did it. And then suddenly, what do we see? January 2021, the sort of explosion see of crypto YouTubers, and sort of how that sort of shot up, and you can see, okay, it's not an exact picture. You can see the representation of Bitcoin price in the white line, but you can kind of see the two massive peaks that you see there, both tying in with pretty much all-time highs in and around sort of May of 2021, and then sort of November, December of 2021 into January 2022, when people are still into alt season. That extreme excitement that there was still about crypto. We roll through 2022. Everyone is getting absolutely liquidated, losing all their money. Retail run away. They're not interested anymore. And to be fair, we've kind of plateaued. There's been certain peaks going off. So we've had kind of mid 24, with that rise up to 70K that first time. Then we've had 2025 in and around the Trump elections, etc. And those moves up, and then all-time highs, we're seeing little peaks, but it's just generally dropping off. And I think this is just showing that actually why we've not really experienced that level of euphoria, certainly with altcoins. And even to a certain extent, if you think about the fact that Bitcoin is $94,000. At one stage, it was $126,000. And yet, the level of fear in this market at the moment sits at just outside of extreme fear, 26. And that doesn't, we've covered this for weeks now, but that doesn't tell the picture. Look, if we go on to a yearly chart, look at this. So, October through to where we are now, so the far right of this graph here, we're talking about all-time high, 126,000, to where we find ourselves now at 94,000, and a trip to 80K in between. We have been sub 30 for over 90% of that 4-month period, despite the fact that Bitcoin has, on average, been around about 100K for magic, internet, money, and yet as a sentiment. And remember that the crypto fear and greed, how it's measured, part of it is from social media, okay? Part of it is sort of how retail are reacting to this sort of stuff. 15% of its weight is given to social media, and yet we're still scared because we've just lost it. And it's that apathy to the price now. We're used to seeing six-figure Bitcoin. So anything under it, it must be the end of the world. I'm not going to bother switching on. And I don't know about you, and sorry if this feels like a bit of a rant, but I do this every day. And even I find myself not as engaged in looking at stuff. I still have my set stuff that I try and do every day, just sort of try and build that picture, what I'm reading, who I'm watching, whatever. But it does feel like a bit of a chore. I still do it. But if you imagine having a full-time job outside of crypto on top of this, of course you're just going to prioritize other things right now, especially for anyone that's been burned. Let's say you were unfortunate, you got in the end of 2021, burn, try and get back in at 2024 and into 2025, get burnt. That's why we just have more fear than we have excitement in the markets. And it really does show when you roll over onto alt season here. I mean, this chart, so I just want to make sure. Oh, okay, this is showing back to September 24. So effectively, in the last, 18 months, 19, 20 months maybe, we have had, according to this chart, 3 weeks of alt season. 3 weeks we've actually managed to get the hype around altcoins to a point where this indicator has tipped into alt season, which is kind of wild when you think about it. Bitcoin over that same period has gone from 49,000 to 126,000. Yes, it's been to 75 and 80 as well, but we've had sustained kind of periods of growth within that. And yet altcoins have just been, if you were just looking at it from this, decimated. There's been more hype around Bitcoin. I mean, we had a huge Bitcoin season through March, May, July 2025, which lasted, the best part of 5-6 months solid of just being a Bitcoin season. And that's because retail just aren't there. They're just not interested to drive it up into alt season. And I think each time we've got above 75, I've used the analogy that they burn bright, but they, the fastest stars, the brightest stars burn the fastest. And so alt seasons don't last that long because, the hype around it gets eaten up so quickly and then we come crashing back down. And so I do think that there is I don't know if it's a relevancy issue at the moment, particularly with precious metals doing as well as they are, even good old boring stock market stuff still, driving hard through prices, through new all-time highs. It kind of feels like, well, when's it crypto's turn? When's it Bitcoin's turn? And I think Bijan and I probably made the point numerous times over the last 12 months, if not more. There's not many altcoins that have made all-time highs in this bull market, in this bull cycle. A lot of them are still riding below the value that they got to in 2021, because back then they were significantly overinflated because of the hype of retail. And with retail not here, we've not had that drive back up to get there, which then sparks more hype, more newbies come in, the greater fool mentality. Those that have been around long enough can suddenly start selling into the hype. And because we haven't had that, it is struggling. And as I say, if you take a look at this as a chart, I mean, this is silver on the weekly chart. That's what we were kind of expecting, a general altcoin to sort of be looking at, this kind of hype here. And maybe that doesn't do it justice. So let me just throw this in and just say, the point of this chart, what you can see on this chart at the moment, the price of silver has gone up 405% in, it's 2 years or just about 2 years worth of data there. But that's kind of what we were expecting to see with very little pullback at the moment, probably running into a blow off top. We'll talk about silver a bit later. Well, without that, it does feel like, where do we balance ourselves? Where are we finding ourselves in the pecking order of retail's excitement right now? And I got a phone. So I sold some of my silver a while ago. The company that I bought it off sold it back to them. So they kind of have a record of how much silver I bought, which was a decent amount. They rang me last week to see if I'd be interested in selling the remainder. I mean, they are trying to rally as much hype in and around precious metals from retailers as they can, We don't really see that with crypto right now. So there's obviously a retail market for those in the industry to try and sort of chip in on the moment because price is going so well. There's an expectation. Retail are dumb and they like to join things at the top rather than at the bottom. And that's where the focus is right now. And unfortunately, how that leaves it for the likes of Bitcoin, although we have made, let me just no, I need to cancel that. Oh, done here. How can I do it? I haven't saved this chart. If I close it down, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to have to just do this. Sorry, bear with me. That's what you get for not having a chart on the screen to start off with. Oh, it should be all right, actually. It should be okay. Fingers crossed. And okay, weekly time frame at the moment, Bitcoin doesn't look too bad. We've had that pullback. It's still a higher high. We're continuing up, but we're nowhere near making another all-time high right now. Whereas, the S&P 500 just every week continues to make an all-time high. Sorry, I haven't cleaned this chart from last time I used it. Same with the NASDAQ. I mean, it's pretty much flirting in and around all-time highs. So it is in a fight. It's in a fight for relevancy. And Bitcoin has at least the size, if you will. It's like a heavyweight. It's going to be able to take a lot more punches, in my opinion, than the featherweight that is altcoins right now. Sorry, I don't really know my boxing terms, so I have no idea how heavy a featherweight person is, but you get the analogy. And I think that is just something that we've got to battle through. Now, what I would say, and I think how I want to try and, I suppose, end this, two ways, really. Because I was searching through Ben Cohen's Twitter, I came across this one from December, and it made me chuckle, so I thought I'd use it again today. This is true, though. So what we do find is that people are still trying to hype up retail. Because crypto Twitter, these YouTubers and crypto influencers, they need retail. Okay, that's how it works. And so they can see that there isn't the demand at the moment. They'll know through, if they're monetized or just general views, whatever, how it's working. But the narrative is always, hey, it's around the corner. It's around the corner. Don't worry, you'll be here next week. Tell you what, 10x your portfolio in 3 months' time. Time to get in now. Buy this token now, whatever. And they just keep on pushing it to the right, because as long as they never concede, they can ride it out a couple more years. And then the moment it does happen, see, I told you we were 6 months late, 12 months late, 18 months late, whatever. But here's the alt season that I've been promising you. And retail fall for it every single time. And so, my message to those of us that are actually here, I have seen some comments in the chat. I'll get to that in a moment. That are still here at the moment. Hopefully we are still here. Yes, okay, more important things in your life maybe, or other things in your life may be more pressing right now. And I get that. That's absolutely fine. That's life. What I would say, though, is don't be like retail. Don't just totally, walk away from this. Either, throw in your chips, walk away, never bother to, one, learn from your mistakes, or two, learn about what's just gone on. Or worse still, still be engaged in, committed, should I say, in terms of financially, but just not bothering. Reallocate your time, of course. If you've got other things in your life, absolutely let those, let those play out. But don't leave this. Don't just totally close your eyes to the space. Just keep engaging, even if it's on a smaller scale, making sure you kind of at least understand, well, what is the major trigger for me to either really get excited again or really crap the bed again? Where is that? And I'll just sort of monitor that sort of level. I'll just focus on Bitcoin's price as an indicator of where the rest of the market are. So I don't have to dive in and understand all of these new changes for that token that I really liked. And it's a different ecosystem, or they're switching over onto a different network or whatever. If you don't have the time for that level, then just make sure that you are still engaged at some level. Don't just walk away. Don't be one of these ones that, just thinks, right, I joined at the top. It's not gone my way. I'm not going to learn from my lesson. I'll walk away. And then lo and behold, in 6 months' time, it's higher than you actually ever thought it was. You've come back and then you are picking the absolute top. So I would say, the best thing we can do to give Bitcoin that fighting chance, I suppose, is to just at least keep our toes dipped in the water understanding it. And just, it doesn't have, we're in a community, sometimes we get lost, but I can even see the levels of engagement on Discord massively down at the moment, and it's fine. But just even if you're not willing to contribute, just make sure you're just checking what's going on, and then you can kind of sort of just engage that barometer of, right, okay, things seem to be heating up. There's a lot more activity people are talking about. Let's get in. Let's re-engage where we're at. So that's kind of where I would probably like to leave that little discussion. Adams, but likely doesn't help social interest metrics. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't consider myself a YouTuber. We used to do this on Zoom until Zoom packed up on my PC. I can't host a Zoom thing. I had Zoom on the actual company to try and resolve whatever bug it was. They couldn't. So we just move it onto here. I don't advertise this channel, don't do anything like that. It's just, I have fun making thumbnails that I probably shouldn't waste the time doing, but hey, I just like doing it. But I just, just have it out here, put the recording out in Discord. However many people watch it, doesn't matter. But even I can see the numbers are down. I can see the numbers on Vimeo are down across all the videos that get released. And yeah, it kind of is what it is. It's I think it's a good indicator, really, of where it's at. But the smart money, as I keep on trying to reiterate, are those that stick through. People that stuck through 2022 saw, right, the collapse of FTX. That's the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're at such a low price. I'm buying back in. And people did. People got in at that $20,000 level. And that's a pretty heroic level to now talk about when Bitcoin's at near 100,000. Oh yeah, I got back in at 20,000 because I stuck through the times when people weren't interested. And I think that's what it's about. It is just about, making sure you're still semi-committed for that. Bijan's put, nothing says bear market is close. The ex mayor of New York launching a Solana meme. Yes, I did see that. I didn't bother going. I saw you post about that. Yeah. Anyone wants to launch a meme coin to try? Was it for autism or something, actually? I can't remember now. You've said anti-Semitism. I thought it was autism. Anyway. Higher highs, the S&P, Russell 2K, precious metals, NASDAQ, Mag 7. This is the first time we are bleeding into all markets. Yes, we are. And, we have to be realistic with that statement. You're right. And I kind of covered that everything's climbing. That's what we expect to do. And the argument is always, and I make it too, our time will come, It's all about, asset rotation. The smart institutional players, they kind of know how to feed that market so they can, cause hype in one area, a bit of a lull in another, and then they can move quite swiftly with volume into those areas, pick it up. But we can only play that narrative a certain amount of time before we have to question it and be, well, actually, why aren't we moving like everything else is? And there's some other things that we're going to talk about, the Clarity Act and a few other things a little bit lower, which maybe just holding us back. But crypto, Bitcoin is a risk-on asset, and the rest of risk-on assets are flying randomly. So are risk-off assets like precious metals. But it just feels like cryptocurrency isn't quite the flavor of the month at the moment. I think you've got to remember President Trump rode into office, 12 months ago or whatever, as a pro-crypto presidency, cabinet, whatever. And it's not really done anything since, Yes, we've managed to get a new all-time high, but in terms of, the Bitcoin Act and the Clarity Act and a few other things, not really got there in terms of legislation, etc., as to where maybe we thought we might be. But these things do take time. Copper and copper miners are breaking out now. I saw that you posted in there. I didn't know, and I didn't want to comment on it because I was obviously trying to just do a bit for today. Can I find it? Just bear with me a second. Where is it? Here we go. Bring it across. Why won't you move? There we go. Sorry. So I don't know where you got this from, and I was like, the first thing that struck me was this is a 23-year penance, whatever you want. I mean, that takes patience, doesn't it? 23 years of holding on to copper, thinking that some stage this pennant's going to break, and yet it has broken through. I would argue now, if I can, which I think I probably can, you could probably read. Oh no, I can't. Why won't this let me draw? It's let me draw on the other page, but not this one. Just a second. I'll fix this. No, I won't fix it, apparently. You are Just teasing me right now. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it won't let me. It won't let me draw on it. That's so weird. I could draw on the rest of this, but I can't draw on Discord. Oh well. I was going to say I there was probably an argument to be made that you could redraw that level now, as with everyone does with support resistance lines. This reminds me of Simon's altcoin calls. Always early, will happen eventually. I mean, look, some people are early in their calls and they just read the market a little bit differently. Those that will maybe have jumped out of the market, they might feel that's a bit early, and only time will tell how right they were or they weren't. I'm not out here to necessarily pick on any one individual, but typically, I mean, I think when I think about sort of, what is it? The moon, what's it? The moon, Carl, the moon or whatever, or we've got Crypto, or we've got the Martini guy. I don't see any of their stuff on YouTube anymore. They used to thrash out videos, 2-3 videos a day, pushing some sort of random altcoin. You don't see any of it right now. It's just dried up because there's no interest in them. Those videos don't get any views anymore. They don't make any money off that. Why bother wasting their time? And I think that's a real sentiment when we start to see these 100x your portfolios or whatever. Buy this altcoin now. That's when there's some more retail engagement. By the time they get it right, there'll be a recession. There are always opportunities. I think my mistakes I made was thinking that certain would continue to perform. Precious metals, reality metals charts, palladiums. Okay, I get what you're saying. Gold have all looked bullish. Yeah, there's people who talk about the sort of cycle theory and everything else, and I get that. But if you were just an average trader, how would you have thought? Let's be honest. It was silver, but that doesn't look natural. There's no way you can think, oh yeah, I thought that was coming. We've just sort of ranged for period here, move up, fair enough. Period here, and then a parabolic move up. I mean, it is near vertical, just like what we had in all the way from 2008, 2008 up to 2011. I mean, that was nearly vertical, and we saw a almost full correction. I won't get down the cycle theory with it all, but I think that those that have said, oh yeah, it was going to get to 86 this, by January, or even in the next 12 months or whatever, I think that's a bold call to make. Yeah, you might think it's moved, but typically these precious metals, they move slow. They don't move in near vertical lines for as long as they have moved. But you're right, Bijan, they have continued to be bullish. The problem you have is someone like us trying to find an entry, and now we're so late in the game, it really does feel like, if I get in now, it's going to collapse, and then it just keeps on going. It does that to sucker you in. It's how market makers do it all, unfortunately. Anyway, for viewers, getting a call early or late is the same as wrong with regards to trading and profit taking. Do you know, I when I was in the military and we used to practice target runs, for hitting buildings with things that go bang. Being 30 seconds late or early was a fail. Being 10 seconds late or early was a fail. The thought process being if you don't do it on time, you don't know if one, there are unnecessary casualties beforehand, or obviously whatever you were trying to achieve from it was no longer there if you turn up late, etc. So yeah, being right is what you're supposed to train for. It's what you're supposed to do, being on time. The reality in trading is that is very difficult. Okay, there's a lot of factors outside of your control that stop that from happening. Whereas in an aircraft, if you've got to go a little bit longer, you can speed up. The distance is a bit shorter, you can slow it down. All those kind of things. You can change the altitude, whatever. I won't bore you with it all. There's a lot of things in your control. Whereas in trading, especially for us menus down at the bottom, that's a very different story. But ultimately, for those that can get on time every single call, unless you are a member of the United States Senate with a surname Pelosi, then that's very difficult to get calls right all the time. But it does happen, obviously. Okay, let's see what else we got. I feel like I've messed this cycle up. So important to me now is to try and reaccumulate at the right time and be more sensible. Yep. Look, as long as you're still in the game, you may have made mistakes, but it's not over. And it doesn't matter what asset you class. As long as you are still in the game, you've got a chance of getting it back. And I think that's we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes this cycle. God, do you remember I started this cycle very heavy in altcoins as well? Polkadot, for example. And you just learn from it. And as long as you can accept you've made a mistake and make that decision to change, and you may change into an area which also is a mistake. But if you keep on learning, keep giving it, the odds are you should succeed. Beautiful word. Assuming this cycle is still intact, which I believe it is. My view. I'm not necessarily too sure on that one, but we'll see. What's it? Mr. Tacker's put, nothing like buying copper when you're young and saying, one day my grandkids will really benefit from this. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I think we kind of covered that. Right. So a couple of things. Chris asked me to look at T-bar, I think that is, ribbit backwards from a technical analysis and a fundamental perspective, please. I will cover it technical analysis at the end. From an FA point of view, I had never even heard of this. I tried Googling it. I tried looking on CoinMarketCap. Couldn't be there. I went on CoinGecko. I found it. I'm assuming you're talking about the Virtuals protocol. That's the one I'm going to give you some TA on, but I have zero FA on it, except to say, who knows, as with any altcoins. But Mo wanted me to have a chat about Monero and privacy coins and the privacy coin race in general. So we'll have a look at that, and then Mark's asked me to talk a little bit about the Clarity Act, whether that's a good, bad, indifferent, or will it create any volatility. But let's start with privacy coins. And there's three that I'm going to talk about, I suppose, because there are a lot of privacy coins out there, but the big three being Monero, Zcash, and Dash. Okay, so they're the three I'll kind of cover. Plenty of other small ones, I'm sure, but I think we'll get the point. And for those of you that aren't aware, a privacy coin is effectively a token that can't be tracked as effectively, as efficiently over the blockchain. Okay, so it provides some additional layer of privacy to the owner in terms of how the blockchain records transactions and moves that to you. So they have a bit of a bad stigma, like the rest of crypto, is that the only people that need to use privacy coins are criminals and naughty people are trying to hide their activities online. And there's an argument that obviously that does get used. I get it. But there are plenty of actual well-intentional individuals that would benefit from using some sort of privacy token in which their activities can't be so aggressively tracked. If you are a relatively big player on a network and people have just found out what your wallet addresses are and can just follow those, they can read a lot about your intentions and your activities, whether to front run you or to undermine you or whatever, that can cause some problems there. And so I get it that that makes those that idea of that particular project more appealing in terms of being able to limit that. And there are still ways around it. I'm not here to dive into that, but the reason, in my opinion, that we've seen an increase in price appreciation of certain privacy tokens over the last 6 months is twofold. One, there was that negative connotation with the likes, particularly Monero. A lot of UK exchanges, you just couldn't buy it. You couldn't buy it spot. You could only trade it as a perp. You weren't allowed to own it as an asset because it was deemed, for retail investors as too dangerous an asset, basically because it couldn't be tracked, it couldn't be controlled. And that's kind of lifted quite a bit now. A lot more exchanges have relisted Monero. And as we've got into a world where, people's funds are digitized, which means that they can be stopped very quickly. We've seen that with Russian oligarchs. We've seen that with, a lot of naughty people as well, don't get me wrong. But the problem is, if you fall foul of a government, I don't particularly want to get political today, but if you live in the United Kingdom, you probably know what I'm talking about, then they can apparently debank you. And so an innocent person may think, well, you know what? I don't want that to happen to me. I want to put my money where it is still digital. I've still got ready access to it, but someone can't just come along and stop that from happening. And so maybe that is what is appealing there. There's also just the fact that there's some hype behind those. And so they have managed to move along. But if you look in the last 7 days, two of the top three, Monero and Dash, Zcash unfortunately has fallen the other way the last 7 days. We'll talk about in a moment. But I sort of look at, I mean, I've never bought any Dash. I don't think. I did buy some Monero, and I've been trading Zcash, but I've only done that because it was an asset that was moving that I thought I could take advantage of, rather than me wanting to take my Bitcoin, put it into another asset, try and provide that extra layer of comfort. I don't feel I personally necessarily need that. And my views on just altcoins in general. My Bitcoin I like to keep hold of because it's taken a lot to accumulate, and I don't want to put it into an altcoin asset which could have great volatility to the upside, but it can also have a Zcash volatility to the downside. And so, yeah, I'm just taking it kind of easy with that one there. But in terms of the race, if we just get the kind of the charts up now, it's difficult to kind of see, but we'll start with Zcash. That was the one that was kind of brought to my attention first. And again, weekly time frame here, it is logarithmic. I mean, just look, in August, we were at $35, and by November, we were at $700, a 20x in the space of 3 months. That's what altcoins are supposed to do. Since then, unfortunately, looking like a classic M formation at the moment. Right side also lower than the left. We're kind of forming in and around that neckline at the moment. I would say 340 is a more accurate figure there. Now, with Zcash, we had that news, which I still didn't bother to verify, but I trust Bijan, in that the vast majority of their developers left a week and a half ago, and that caused a big sell-off. We were rallying into the, maybe a new climb up, and then we had that news at sort of, I don't know when it was, beginning of the year, last week, and we've fallen $150 in value since that news broke. Now, it could just be, let's face it, we've rallied so hard from that, we need some sort of sensible pullback. I mean, if I throw an EMA on here, you can kind of see just how wild it is. And actually, now you got the 20 EMA on there. These pullbacks have just come back to the 20 EMA. I mean, to get to the 50 EMA, a more sensible resettling would have to fall down to $200. That would feel unbelievable. This is a logarithmic chart as well. We put this on the linear. You really see how far that would be as a fall down to there. And you can see just how large a growth it's been. So yeah, that's had an incredible run to it. We go to the likes of Monero, which, lo and behold, look what's happened. Zcash has fallen out of favor with the developers moving away 2 weeks ago. And what's happened? In that time, we've put nearly 50% value on Monero. We were at 420. We're now at 680, actually over 50% in value. And I would argue that the appetite is still there for privacy coins, but for whatever reason, people have left Zcash and they've just rotating it into Monero, doing a similar job. And those that have actually managed it well have actually also managed to benefit not only from the privacy side that have been offered, but actually some sizable accumulation of their portfolio if they ever want to convert it back into USDT, etc. And then Dash is starting to have a little bit of a run. Now, it had a great run similar to Zcash. A little bit later, started end of September, and it only lasted for 6 weeks. But this thing went up 630%. So went up from $20 to $150, near 7x in a 6-week period. Incredibly sharp pullback. And this, I could argue, is probably what might happen to Zcash. Look where it came down to, the 50 EMA linear chart here. And then we found that it's actually bouncing. It's come back up last couple of days. We've seen it pretty much 50% in value over the last week. Still an incredible fall down from where it was if you were sucker enough to buy on the hype on the way back up. But actually that 50% is fairly good down there. But in terms of winning the race, sorry, spit your words out, Zcash technically is still ahead in terms of it's still around about 10x from where it was over the summer of last year. Monero is certainly getting there, but it's probably only around about an 8x at the moment. And as we can see with Dash, we're around about a 3x from where it was. So that race terminology, Zcash is winning it, but it has burst all 4 tires, okay? I don't know if we're going to use an F1 formula, F1 analogy here, but XMR, sorry, is certainly catching up with it. And if we, continue to see Zcash pulling back, sorry, let's have that one up again, to a more natural position, 50 EMA, if it goes down that far, the Monero is obviously going to climb up. But what goes up must come down. This thing, if it ever needs to pull back, even to the 20 EMA, it's a $250 drop from where it is right now. So that's going to be felt pretty aggressively as well. Hopefully that answers the question. Let's just have a look here. So there's a few things going on. I think 26 will give great cycle lows to buy. I kind of agree with that. Knowledge from the cycle, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yep, 100% agree with you, Okay, good. PhD in bad timing. We've all got a PhD in bad timing. It's called being involved in crypto. I see the recession before the cycle lows. Employment data keeps on getting revised. I'm not going to talk about that today, but you're right. The last 12 months worth of employment data got revised. I remember when Dash was greater than 1K. It's fallen so far. What is Dash's all-time high? I don't actually know. Whoa. So here was 500 just shy of, but it doesn't have all of the history. I just took the first chart Binance there. So, but yeah, I mean, look at that. Now you look at it, that looks like an altcoin, doesn't it? I mean, when I told you that altcoins haven't passed their peak, this is effectively what 99% of all altcoins have done this cycle. Come nowhere near the previous cycle. This perfectly summarizes the lack of retail. Okay? The space has evolved. This as a project has improved, in inverted commas, with 4 years of better technology, improvements, developments, whatever. But without retail, it has come nowhere near this time. We are 10%, 90% down on where it was. So what a brilliant illustration to cover my first point. Anyway, that's where that is. Let me just have a little laugh. Sorry, I was going to mention this, and this is to do with privacy, and I didn't quite talk about it. UK government U-turns on mandatory digital IDs for workers. Flip-flop customer once again. Apparently, this is breaking news. About an hour ago now, it dropped. We'll be announcing that digital IDs are no longer to be mandatory. Poor Simon had to go through getting a digital ID. The one person would probably be absolutely vehemently against it. He's probably one of the only people that's going to have it, as this is now going to change. And then just the irony of it, because someone sent me this and I was like, I can't believe that's true. I've not seen it on any news outlets. Of course, that's because I was checking the BBC, and I'm sure it's buried somewhere deep on the BBC, but it's not on their homepage. Absolutely nothing about the United Kingdom, the government flip-flopping there. But there we go. Digital IDs are apparently going to be reversed, making it the 13th, you've heard it right, 13th major U-turn that this government has made in their 18 months in power. I said I wasn't going to get political, and I just have, but there you go. You can tell who I vote for, I'm sure. Right, sorry, one other thing, Clarity Act. Mark asked about that. Thanks for the privacy spotlight, yeah. It'll be option to reel people in, and then it'll be mandatory. I mean, I don't know anything more than that headline, because it just dropped as I was looking into privacy stuff, and that popped up. But we'll see what they say. We'll see what they say. So, the Clarity Act. I thought I had a tab for it. Doesn't matter. We will just have, I'll give you a nice pretty Bitcoin chart to look at whilst I talk. Look at Bitcoin go. 94,500. So, just on the Clarity Act, basically the Clarity Act is a bit of a nickname. It's actually the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. Came about in 2025. I don't know how the House structure works in the United States. It hasn't gone all the way through. It's not a bill or an act or whatever it is yet, but it's working its way through Congress or the Senate or whatever. Forgive me. You Americans are turning over going, how do you not know how halls of power work? I don't. But what is it supposed to do? Well, basically, for the entire time that crypto has been going on, there's been a bit of a power struggle in terms of who is to regulate cryptocurrency, because the SEC try and claim that it's a security without really stating why it's a security. I'm not going to get into the Howley's tests, etc. And then the CFTC, so the commodities regulators, they were kind of saying, well, Bitcoin's a bit more like a commodity, etc. And there's no real kind of true understanding as to where this falls, so how it can be genuinely regulated and legislated for. And so the Clarity Act was effectively brought in to do that. And what it's to do is it's to basically confirm that it is not a security. Bitcoin is not a security. Therefore, the SEC, whilst it still has oversight over, making sure that everything is done in a professional and sort of a compliant manner, it will actually be regulated or managed. I don't know if that's the right word, by the CFTC, because they have authority over spot digital commodities, I suppose. I'm just trying to read to see when they think it's going to go through. I can't see it here. No, I thought there might be someone here to say where it's at. I don't know. It hasn't gone live yet. The argument is that once the Clarity Act does go live, we're going to have that clear framework in which everybody knows what is right, what is wrong, what is illegal, what is no longer a grey area, etc. And we've talked for a time. Two sides to the coin, isn't there? Regulation hopefully turns the crypto space from the Wild West into a bit more of a Western civilization. But at the same time, does it then lose its appeal in terms of volatility and potential for gains? Now, for me, I see it as a net positive. For whatever reason, we have welcomed institutions into the crypto space, particularly Bitcoin. It is not the asset that it was 10 years ago. And so ultimately, if we need, now that we are relying on institutions, if we want to bring in pension funds and everything else and really start to open this up to massive amounts of funding, money, whatever, we need to make sure that it is regulated. Now, that's from the United States point of view. They're kind of the front runner. The UK is sort of trying to bring in some regulation themselves. There's an argument they might be slightly ahead, but no one's really cracked it yet. And I think there was an article with Charlie Hoskinson, spit his name out, the co-founder of ADA, and he was just talking about how actually the government's made a bit of a mess in the Clarity Act. So they found it more difficult than they thought it was going to be in terms of trying to pull that legislation together. And so there's that journey that still needs to be had, and in an evolving market like cryptocurrency, which hasn't been around that long but changes so fast, I can imagine how difficult that is going to be to actually legislate for, to actually put words down in black and white, stamp them with approval and go, they will not change unless we then have to go through another whole process. So to try and get those, the copper plate, the brass plate, whatever it's called, boilerplate stuff down, I imagine it'll take some time. In terms of, I think it will be a good thing in the long term. I don't really have a problem with regulation. We're already there. If you do enough crypto in the UK, you've got to confess to the HMRC anyway. Let's just get this thing regulated, hopefully offers some protection, and take it from there. In terms of the volatility, I don't really see the news being good or bad. It's a bit regulation, okay, a bit nodding dog kind of thing. So I don't really see that driving too much volatility on the announcement that that's kind of gone through and being passed. In terms of the overall volatility, it should stabilize it a lot more. We should see movements. Had we rewound 9 months ago, a bit more akin to like gold and the stock market, where it's a few percent a day rather than 20% here and 20% there. But given that gold and silver are moving up, 4 or 5% every day now, who knows where that's going. So that's my very short view on that. I will find Mark for you. I did a whole video back in, it would have been probably this time last year, maybe March, on the Clarity Act. I'll dig that out for you and I'll send it across. Right, we have spoken far too long about this sort of stuff. Let's actually get into some charts. Thank you for bearing with me through all of that. Bitcoin, let's go. Okay, so here we are. 12-hour time frame at the moment. Bitcoin, last time we saw it, where were we? We were Tuesday. Here we go. So where we are right now. We were at 94,000. So basically nothing has happened. But actually, since then, we have gone down to that 89,000. We didn't quite get down to 88,410, this sort of fib level, but a fairly good level from it. And we're making that strong move up. It's been a big move today. We don't see $3,000 moves that often in a single day. And look exactly what we're running into. It's still an area of liquidation heat maps that we haven't taken out yet. Now, there's two frames of thought here. We haven't been able to enter this level, for the best part of 2-3 weeks now. We've always rejected from the base of that level. So is that a good chance we're going to do it? It's a very strong candle at the moment. I'm sure a lot of lower time frame indicators are probably burning a little hot at the moment. Maybe we do get a bit of a pullback, but at some stage we will, obviously. And what I see there is the 1.618, basically 96,700 at the top of this level. And it would not surprise me. We've had many attempts at this. Okay, and this one here, instead of going all the way down and resetting at the lower levels that we had, we actually managed to form, a base here to find that next leg up. And the idea, I suppose, now being that actually, because we didn't have to go down so far, we've got still a bit more momentum to go. Can we actually make that move up? And so what I would be looking at is that 96,700. That 618 level is a 1.618, remember, but it's still a golden level in terms of the fibs. These fibs have worked long term since all the way back from March 24. So I'm not throwing them out yet. They have worked very well for us in the past. But that tying in with that liquidation zone, I can see that being an area that maybe we cool off. We start talking about EMAs on the weekly time frame, we're going to be getting close to that figure as well. So certainly a lot to have a look at there. But a great move over the last day and a half. And it could be argued, I think I've got it here, CPI data. So the core CPI month on month did actually come down, it came on. And so previously it was 0.2, it remained 0.2 and everything, but they thought it was going to go higher. So in theory, it was cooler than forecast, but it actually remained the same. And the year on year and just the CPI month on month remained the same. So relatively good news. We're still on that track down. Bijan again posted in Discord. Trueflation is actually sitting around about 1.7%. So we know that normally tracks lower than how these guys track it, but still it's on that way down. The mandate, I'm sure most of you that listen to Powell, is 2% mandate. So moving there, but yeah, we've had a strong reaction from that move on the time frame. I would love for us to burst through this level and start to talk about where we can go up that way. But I think the reality of it is we've been below this level now for, almost 2 months. Let's just get above 97,000, have that conversation then. But that for me is level. And a failure here, and if we do end up failing at, I'm never going to be able to do this. I was going to delete drawings, but it'll take everything out. If we do end up failing here, then I still feel that the safer bet is down at that sort of like lower level, 96,000, 86,000, but move back down. But even if it does it, that 90K's formed a nice little bottom there. Maybe we find some sort of respite in that level. Moving on to a bit more of a higher time frame. I don't know what that line is there in there. We'll just get rid of it for now. But we've seen this chart, and Adam mentioned he still thinks that the bull market is still going. And I have to say, if you just want to zoom out, there is no reason to doubt that. Every single one of these on this side is higher than the previous one. Every single one of these on this side is higher than the previous one. We are still making higher highs and higher lows. The trend has not broken. And until we break that trend of a weekly close below 78,000, we are still in that uptrend, okay? And that's something to just sort of say, right, it's been a bit of a crap time over the last 2 months, but if I've got to hold on to absolutely anything, at least we haven't lost 78K. We're still going upwards. We throw on some of the EMAs. It's not as pretty a picture. I'll be honest with you. We talked about last week about a potential cross of the 20 and the 50 EMA. We're getting very close to it now. Cross of the 20 and the 50 EMA. Every time, I think I went through this last week, but every time that has happened, that has been the absolute confirmation that we are in a bear market. Previously, we've normally seen rallies up to that level and then it fall away. Now we are making a rally up to those levels. They haven't technically crossed yet. And Bitcoin absolutely had a stonking week today, a week this week, putting another 6-7 grand on. Maybe the red line actually curves up ever so slightly and we don't have that cross. But right now they are looking like they are very close to a cross. As I say, previous cycles, what we see is a rally up to it and then a rejection and a fall away. I'm not saying that's going to happen, just saying that's what happens in previous cycles here. And here, you get the point. And here. So that's something to look at. We try and have these metrics that just sort of keep it in mind. Now, this time could be different. And that cross and we still break through it. A lot of things have happened differently this time, except for the fact that we hit an all-time high in Q4 and then we lost the 50 EMA, which is pretty similar to what's happened in the past, but no one wants to admit to that. But yeah, I think just on the higher time frame, weekly time frame, I don't like being below the 50 EMA. I'm cautious. I talk about that all the time. But the fact that we're still making higher highs, that we're having this strong move today, I'll take it. A nice bottoming pattern. Last week again, we talked about the time of ranging periods, the similarities with 2021 as well. Get rid of that cross. So, we can't say, oh, well, in the past, this has happened, and not look at other things in the past that were similar and discount those because it happened in the past. Well, we either go off what happens in the past or we don't. So, nice to see. That being said, even forgetting the things like the crosses, I just want to get rid of this. So we talked on that 12-hour chart of 96,700. The 50 EMA at the moment is at 97 dead. Okay, so that this level here, where my X is, and pretty much the top of this liquidation heat map, is also now the top of the weekly 50 EMA. That is a level, okay? That is something that is going to take momentum to get through. So we've got to be prepared for maybe a rejection from this level. We've been talking about coming back to this level for the last $4,000, 101 when we lost it, and we've been slowly drifting down. It's right upon us at the moment. I mean, if we have this move again tomorrow, we're at that level, $3,000 away. So I think that's something that we have to bear in mind. And as I said, some pretty bullish news, reaction to CPI data, inflation data, sort of sticking around and not dropping, despite other data being updated. The only problem is everyone's hoping we're going to get another rate cut. And whilst it is 2 weeks away, it's at 95% as it was going to remain at its current level of 350 to 375. After the CPI data came out, it actually went to 97% chance that there isn't going to be a rate cut. 2 weeks to go. So we've got a bit of time here, but fairly strong indication even now that actually this thing is going to stay where it is. And you can kind of look at the bottom. I can't zoom in, but for those of you that can see it, a month ago, it was 75%. We would see it stay here in 24. That 24 has just dwindled. So it's got a bit to go. Something else we always look at is the ETFs. And I mean, Bitcoin's had it hard for, we had a good opening to the year, and then, BlackRock had pretty much given it all back. I don't know how today's gone, but we've had a few red days in a row now, certainly from BlackRock and almost in a row from the rest of the market. So yeah, taking a bit of a kick, and I dare say this will be black for today. Whether or not it stays that, I don't know. When am I going all in on subnets? I already am all in on subnets. I just didn't want to tell you all. I couldn't face the humiliation of admitting I'd done it. Right, I'm conscious I've already been rattling on for an hour. Let's get into some charting. I want to get Bitcoin, I want to get Tau, I want to get Ethereum, I want to have a look at sort of totals, and then we'll probably knock on and Ribbit or whatever it was called, Tribber. In fact, we'll do that one first. So, okay, I am assuming, sorry, it was Chris that asked, wasn't it? Yeah, that this is the one you were talking about. It's a Rebeta by Virtuals. It's the only one I could find, so I've gone with it. We are on the daily time frame, and I just want to say, you know, not knowing too much about it, it looking very similar to a lot of other altcoins. It has rallied up until that October-November peak, and then since then we have come crashing back down, losing the 50 EMA on the daily time frame. Let me just throw this onto the linear chart and just maybe offer, I don't know if you're invested in this, why you're interested in it, but it's basically come down to base support, and we have had a nice bounce from that. A couple of days ago we had this huge rally up. Maybe that's why it caught your attention. You know, doubling, 50% increase on the day, which is giving it all back. Worrying sign for me. So, you know, get rid of that wick. We're still in that downtrend, but we have found support on this line, and as long as we keep this, then, you know, we may continue. We'll see some bounces there. A loss of this one, and I know I'm only on the linear, but I would be looking at sort of this level here, obviously with the vector, but also just tying in with all of that noise down there. So, you know, a loss of this level at say 16, I'm thinking it's going to go down to between 9 and 8, reclaiming that vector on the daily time frame, going from there. As soon as we got it, we will drop it down to the 4 hour, then I'll get into some of the more serious stuff. But yeah, you know, we've come down, we've formed that base, we've kind of moving up, and 4 hour has just about managed to claim above that. But I dare say, look at the last 2 weeks, how many different color candles there are. They've all been reclaimed. So this blue and green, to me, I feel like that is going to be retaken. I'm sorry, that is prime for it. We need to clear this. I mean, yes, okay, we got through the EMA with a vector to get through, but we've done that in the past and it's not had enough. We need to see some clear movement, strong movement away from the EMAs, making a new high. We need to get above 22, and we can start talking about building from there. But right now, yes, you have strong base support in and around that 16 level, but we've also got some vectors in the wake, which I think are probably going to end up coming back. So that's my view on that one. Get back onto the daily, and let's go up to Bitcoin. Oops. I still have the RSI down the bottom, but why can't I get rid of that? There we go. I'll just minimize it for now. I don't think we really need to be looking at it just yet. Okay, daily time frame. Now, we've been in this before, so this was that happened last week. We got a little excited. We broke through the 50 EMA with a green vector candle. It's what I was calling for. Couldn't sustain it. The very next day, you gave it away. I know it's a bit late for Christmas songs. And we lost it. We came back under the 50 EMA, but we stuck around. As I say, that $90,000 level worked quite well, which tying in quite nicely the 20 EMA on the daily time frame. We've broken through it again today. A very strong breakthrough on this day candle. We're still at the top of the cloud. And so whilst I'm happy that this has happened, history not only 7 days ago showed me that actually there's still some volatility left in this market, and maybe we're going to end up falling back down. What I would say is we haven't wicked past the high from last Tuesday, but if we was close where, you know, above 94,000, it is a higher close on the daily time frame. I might be clutching at straws there, but that's what I'd be looking at. In terms of where direction could go, it's exactly the same as what it was last week. We've got these vectors here, which happen to tie in 97,000 with the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame. If we're lucky enough to reattack the $100,000 level, it's tying in with the 200 EMA, and again, could make for some interesting moves there. But I do think so. Bigger picture, and I'll get rid of loads of that. Let's get rid of this as well. I don't know why that's on the chart. Bigger picture, weekly time frame. We're just about to brace above. Still got 5 days to go. The 10 EMA. So that fall down over the last couple of weeks, we lost the 10 EMA. We've come back. We've corrected from it. The question now is, can we break through this, reattack the 50 EMA and beyond, or do we need one more low and then a move? I don't know. I would have thought with the rejection from last week that the move down to that 86,000 was more likely. Obviously, we found some support at 90K, and we've got to move up. So, because we're right on the limit, that 94 level right now of where we've been ranging for the last 2 months, it's hard to make that call. We could reject at any time from it. So I have to just sit on my hands, I'm sorry, and wait to see what happens. But you can kind of see just where this noise is at 90. It's 97,600 actually. So it's a little bit higher than what I was saying. But with the 20 there as well, can conceivably make a move back to that level, just naturally part of breathing before coming back down. So for me, I want to see us really drift up to this, resetting a little bit as we go, and then finding some pace and some speed to get through. That's what I want to see. Whether or not I get to see it is something completely different. I didn't use it, but for those of you who do like the MACD on the weekly and the 3-day and the 5-day, it's pretty low. And so, there's an argument to say that we are due an uptick at the moment. The RSI has down to, I pointed out on the weekly time frame, this low is as low as it was from 2022. We're starting to build from that one, and we've got plenty of room to run from a weekly point of view. As we go down through the time frames, we're starting to get a bit higher, but even on the daily, we're not in overbought yet. So there's still time for this to find some movement back up, and go from there. If we go now down onto the 4-hour time frame, we just have a look at where we are. Lovely clean breakthrough, 50 EMA. We're starting to build from this with some sustained movement to the upside, eating into these vectors right here. They go all the way up to 95.5 actually, and then we've got the 800 EMA around about 98. But we're leaving a bit of a wake behind us. The RSI is in overbought territory, and we're borderline. We're not quite there, but any further climbing, and we may also start to see some sort of bearish divergence. These are fairly level at the moment, but we close 95. Suddenly there's a bit of a bearish divergence there. Quite a slight one to start off with, but something to consider. So we may just see that reset. The problem is we could reset all the way back down. Now, falling down here doesn't equate to how far you fall in price. I accept that. But if we look at even the 10 EMA, 50% of this vector candle here is 92.5. We go down to the 50, we've lost all of it. We're back down to 91. So there's still, unfortunately, plenty of room for us to pull back. And the same thing stands for Bitcoin as it does for Tribor or whatever I just looked at. Vectors get claimed. When we range, vectors get reclaimed. And so if we can't break that 94, those vectors are coming back, okay? It's coming back, I'm afraid so. So all eyes on breaking and holding that 94 level, and getting through there. Don't think the hourly really tells us much more, except for the RSI is definitely overheated. And so, but a fallback there, about 92 to 50 EMA, that'd be perfectly fine, Take us back to kind of where we were at markets open, still an improvement on the daily open, and just sort of build through as we have done over the last few days. That'd be a sensible way of doing that, to clean through. Right, okay. This is going to be a long one today. I'm so sorry about that. Let's go on the daily. Let's quickly get onto BitTensor. I'm going to go on weekly. Said I'd have a look at this. So I don't know who posted it, but someone posted Ralph Hall talking about BitTensor in Discord. And maybe I have been a little overcritical, because as I say, I kind of, wait a second, I thought that was on the wrong chart there. I'm trying to just tidy this up. There's a lot of colors and a lot of lines, but ultimately there is some sort of pennant kind of forming. It's formed in a fairly nice range, and when you actually zoom out on the weekly time frame, it can't look any clearer than this. And actually, when you look at it, surely that's the next move. Weekly time frame, going to take some time maybe to get there, but a move to 440, it's what we've done for the last 2 years. It's just moving this pattern here. And so it kind of feels inevitable that that's actually where we're going. Whether or not we can get north of that is another thing, but there's a vector there for us as well. There's this upper band that we just always like to hit. Once we've hit this lower band, we then just naturally move straight up, so that it's like a bouncing ball. And so actually we've made a good bounce off this lower band, a strong first step towards it. 440 kind of feels like actually on the cards. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get there, but that's where I'd be looking at it. So yeah, weekly time frame, let's take a step back and say maybe we've got an opportunity there. Go on to the daily now. It's a little bit different on the day because there's a little bit more in our way. But again, U-shaped, V-shaped recovery out of this, breaking through the 50 EMA, correcting back off it. But unlike a lot of altcoins that I showed you last week, losing the 50 EMA, this has actually been able to build. And we have just ranged sideways. And I think Alan put something in Discord about these boxes, sort of like $10 boxes from 295, 275. And we just kind of work perfectly within that range. It's clear to see on the 4 hour and the 1 hour. Sorry, my dog just jumped off the sofa. Bored of me now. But yeah, so I'm happy with the fact that it's building above the 50 EMA, hasn't lost it yet. 10 and the 20 are starting to climb the right way through. But Gandalf's there waiting for us. And until we get through Gandalf, then it's not. I mean, there's $30 to get there. So there's still something to play with. But till we prove ourselves at 315, I don't think there's too much to really write home about. But as I said, it does feel inevitable that we will get through it. And that's 440 right into that vector, Talk about magnets. 4 hour time frame. It actually looks even better on the 4 hour in terms of what we've done. We've had that move up. We've just consolidated sideways nicely, not really threatening to lose that 50 EMA, and we're just waiting for that move up. Now there is an 800 EMA at 310, pretty much the Gandalf level. But again, nice steady bounds move there. All the vectors have pretty much been recovered except for this one here, 270. Maybe we get down there, but it's not showing any signs of wanting to break the 50 EMA. So maybe we've actually these are gonna be ones that we leave behind, a bit like we have here, and we just have to hope we never revisit them, and we'll just talk about it should we get down those levels. But I'm liking how that is, except for the 800 EMA, the 10, the 20, the 50, the 200 lined up nicely. Sideways movement in some tight formation, just building for some sort of move up. RSI looking fairly relaxed as well, which I'm trying to enlarge for you. So sitting middle of the pack there. And then down on the hourly, you kind of see this range now, and it has really worked within that sort of 295, 275 kind of range, moving in and around. Of course, we're on the hourly, so we are going to chop in and around that 50 EMA. But generally, we're just sort of holding the 50 EMA as we're moving across. And we've got some decent support down below. 275 with the 200 EMA, 266 with the 800 EMA. And again, fairly cool on the RSI. So it feels like there's a move coming for BitTensor, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Maybe it's just going to be dictated by what Bitcoin does. But all things being equal, that looks fairly good. Ethereum daily time frame finally got back above that 50 EMA. We've been in this situation before. There we were last week. It's the 200 that's holding us back here. So yeah, happy to see us at 3,200. I say happy. You're probably not happy if you're an Ethereum holder. But until we get above that 3,350, it's really just we're just sitting and waiting. And again, there's a nice bit of support that's being built down here. I can't quite get to touch this one, but it's working quite nicely. We're getting towards this pinch point, but we've got to get through it. It just hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to do any T on these. We're just going to kind of have a look to see where it is. Basically at the 50. Near's had a move. AI 10% today. Fair enough. Still top of the cloud. I mean, so here's a prime example with Near. I think this is just a mentality thing. Let's get rid of it. Just we don't need any of this for what I'm about to say. Near's had a good move, 10% today. But actually, still pretty turgent, What were we? $14, $7, $8. We're now less than $2. So yeah, it's nice that it's had that move, but just altcoins, it's had a 10% move after a 90% drop. It is where it is, and you know how much of a fan I was of Near. So yeah, XRP. I'm on the weekly here, aren't I? Again, had that nice move down. I mean, I don't know when we marked this. It's had that nice base support build from that, and then it's built up this year. Corrected 50%. I've taken all the indicators off. 50% retracement. I better put some of them back on so we can actually see some EMAs. And then sort of just building on that 50 EMA. Needs to go, though. Needs to move through it. Everything else, I mean, ETH BTC, well, BTC's been winning over the last few days, so you can see that reflected in ETH BTC falling down. Tether's still climbing. Dominance dropped a little bit, actually. Good. We want to see dominance come down. That's what we want to see. Ethereum, not Ethereum, USDT dominance. Get some money spent back in altcoins and Bitcoin. The VIX fairly low still. Dixie's at 99. That's crept up. Why does this never save? 99. Battleground obviously is at 100, but it's moving back up. Obviously some geopolitical movements there. We looked at NAS. I'm not going to go into the charting of it, but again, near all-time highs and just moving in the right direction. S&P has all-time highs, still moving in the right direction. And the Russell, I didn't see it, but strong all-time high again today. Gold's doing the same. Silver, platinum, palladium, all working upwards. A lot of these have closed. Circles kind of sideways. Nvidia, it's near its all-time high, but just moving sideways. Tesla, okay, coin, that's what I was wanting to do. Still heading down. MSTR. I mean, it's another example, isn't it? Oh yeah, 6% move at 177. We were at 550 not that long ago, but you know, it's got to turn around at some stage, and it really was clawing onto things at 155. So the fact that it's actually managed to recover it, but we've got work to do. It's still in a downtrend, hasn't got above the 50 EMA in the daily time frame. It's a long way for it to go there. The 800 EMA is in its way too. Could be a bit of a problem there. And that's probably about it. I've rattled on for an hour and 20 minutes, and I think that's probably long enough for those of you that stuck with it. We'll have a trading pub on Thursday. We'll have a charting call on Friday. There's a ski trip next week, so I'm not sure there'll be a trading pub, but there'll be the other calls that will certainly go out. We'll find out on Thursday if there'll be a trading pub next week. If you haven't already, book onto the Cuddle in February. I think it's Valentine's Day. What better way to spend it? And I don't know if it's going to be another AI subnet type one, or it's going to be a bit more crypto focused. I will speak to Lewis and try and find that one out, and I'll let you know. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I know I haven't updated you on that trading thing yet, but just rest assured, it's because I haven't placed a trade. And I don't want to go into it, but I've said other things that I've had to deal with this week outside of crypto, so I've not been able to focus on charts the whole time. So I will get into it, and I will start posting when that starts. I promise you all that. I'm not secretly doing it and making my millions without telling you about it. But yeah, as always, you've got any questions, any issues you're having individually, whatever, feel free to DM me. I'll try and help you out where I can. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers now.